my chat and stuff set up so I can see what's going on. That's the last chat showing on my stream. Cool. Just double checking where we got the stream going right now. Should be going to LinkedIn, Facebook, not Instagram. The format's not going to work well for coding. YouTube, Twitter, all the good places. And this is going to be live coding. And I did ask, especially on LinkedIn, I wanted to see if people wanted to see this kind of stuff because I don't really live stream code to LinkedIn. So we'll see. I think my chat is currently not doing what I want, so let me refresh it. Cool. I think that's working now. Okay, awesome. So sometimes I live stream when I'm coding stuff, and if I'm not working on, I'm not ready to live stream some of my personal projects yet, because I'd like to have those a little further along before I demonstrate some code from any of that. But a lot of the YouTube content I create that shows code does actually refer to projects I'm working on. So whether you can tell or not, I'm generally putting out videos that are helping me solve problems. So that's what's going on with that. But other times I am trying to live stream a little bit more because I have to put code together for YouTube and to make the videos that I'm putting on YouTube and that kind of stuff. So the thing is, I have to do that work. I figured I might as well show people what's going on. Then you can ask questions. It takes me a little bit longer because I'm doing stuff like this and I'm talking, but I feel like whatever, I got to do the work anyway, and it's extra content, so why not, right? So you guys can ask questions as I'm going along. I'm going to be building on the series that I've been putting out recently about downloading files in C#. And in particular, this all stemmed from being able to download large files. So some of the background there is that when we are downloading files in C#, you don't get the luxury of having a stream that comes back. So again, if you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, I'll break it down a little bit. But when you're asking for a file, you want to download it, it's literally just bytes, right? But instead of giving you, like if you're downloading a video, like a gigabyte of just bytes and you want to like put that all into memory, like we don't want that to happen usually. So the idea is that you're able to stream it so that you get sequentially just requesting more and more data, and we can actually minimize how much memory we're using for that. So the video series so far has been talking about that. We looked at refactoring some of the code to make it more reusable, put it into a format that we can play around with, and it feels nicer to call. Because the first video just said, here's a bunch of code, here's what it does, have fun. So this way is a little bit better. And the goal in this now is to do, based on some requests that were coming in, people were saying, hey, like, what would this look like? You know, what are the results of this? So I don't want to talk about performance benchmarks with respect to runtime because I'm going to be downloading files. This is already going to be a super weird benchmark to go right. I'm going to be downloading files from the internet. I don't control my internet speed. I don't control the server on the other side. So these aren't going to be good benchmarks for doing performance, right? There's too many variables. It's not going to be consistent, and it's a good reminder. That's why I'm mentioning it to folks at the start of this video with this ramble, is that it's not a good approach in the first place. So the runtime stuff, totally not going to care about it. But I am interested in doing some benchmarking around the memory usage. And again, I don't control all the variables going on here, but I would suspect that even if the download speeds and stuff were different, what we should be able to see if we compare these two methods is that the memory usage does look different. And the idea, or I guess the reason behind that, is because if we ask to download a video, and let's say it's 20 megabytes, if we use the normal way and we just say, hey, give me this 20 megabyte video, you would put this all into memory at once. So you use 20 megabytes of RAM at least to do that. And the alternative way that I was showing in the other videos was that we can stream it as it's coming in. And this should mean that we don't use as much memory. That's the goal. And I want to be able to demonstrate that with benchmarks, because how much memory are we saving? I have no idea, but it should be less. So we should be able to measure that. Question from Twitter here says, Oh, I guess the chat is working in the stream as well. It's just that it has the old messages, which is weird. Hi Nick, just want to ask how to tackle live coding interviews. So yeah, you can do practice just like this. No, in all seriousness, I think this is my personal opinion when I'm interviewing people. Um, I've said this publicly before, and I am fine to repeat it. I don't care as much if you get the right solution. That's not why I'm interviewing you, because if I just wanted the right solution, I would expect that you would go on the internet and just research the exact right solution because it's been answered. I don't care about the right solution as much. As much. The reason I'm saying as much is because I want you to be able to navigate the problem, ask clarifying questions. I want to see how you're thinking about going through the steps. And that way I get a feel for how you're approaching your problem solving. There's some really interesting things from my interviewing experience, and it might surprise you. When I'm asking technical questions in interviews, like the actual programming ones, this is the phase where people are like, oh, get ready because you're gonna have to do lead code questions, that kind of stuff. I don't ask tricky questions. And the surprising part, you might say, well, why? Like, don't you want to ask hard questions? That way you can get good candidates because only the best ones are going to explain it. I ask very simple questions, and you would be amazed at how many people just have difficulty navigating very simple questions. So the reason I do this is because the questions I ask, if someone happens to just totally ace it and they're like, this is ridiculous, why did you ask me something so simple? The questions I ask, I can keep building on if I need to. But the reality is I very rarely get to positions where I need to build on these things. So something as simple as make a linked list for me, right? There's no tricks. It's not, oh, like, and by the way, as you start coding, I like throw a curveball at you and you're like, I've never heard of this. Like, my goal is not to trick you in an interview. So I want to see if you've said that you've programmed before, like I should be able to see that you can follow some type of logic. Like, I don't care what language you pick, right? Like, so set up what your data structure is going to look like. I'm usually giving you like an API for it. So like people will say, hey, can I change the API? So sometimes they'll say, no, like, let's keep it like that's a constraint. So I want you to work within some constraints. And then I want to see you rationalize like, okay, well, how would this work if I only have these inputs? You know, the syntax and stuff, I don't care as much about, but I have seen people say, I've been using this language for X years. And then they go to program, and it's not on a whiteboard, it's like virtual and they can type, but they go to program in this language that they've done for years. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, they're not able to declare variables or do simple assignments or make a function. And I'm not saying this to pick on people. I'm saying that I personally feel like I set the bar very low because I can always lift that bar as we're interviewing. So I do expect that people explain what they're doing. They're asking clarifying questions because when you start making assumptions about things, I will generally try to test you on that. And I do that because if you're just doing it from memory, like, you know, the linked list one is maybe less obvious, but if there's something that's a little bit more advanced, if you're just kind of, it seems like you're just reciting it, like you're not explaining things to me, you're just kind of doing it. I need to be able to make sure that you understand what you're doing. So, you know, as you're walking through what you're writing and how you're approaching your problem, please speak out loud, explain your thought process. Because if you get stuck, another thing that can help is that the interviewer can say, I know what, like, you told me what you were thinking, and let's back up. You made an assumption here. Let's go correct that. And then you can carry on. Right. So I hope that kind of helps. But the biggest tip I have is like explain yourself as you're going. I think that's the most beneficial thing. And I do recommend practicing lead code problems. It's not my doesn't make me feel good to say that because I don't think lead code problems are representative of a lot of software engineering, just to be honest, but they are helpful for interviews. So for Twitter, I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I apologize, but I hope that helps answer your question. Let me know if you'd like any more details. There's a dog trying to break into my room right now. I can hear her at the door. and she weighs 130 plus pounds. So there might be a wolf in here in a moment, but I think she went to the other bedroom. We're safe. Whew, okay. Yeah, let me know if you want to have me explain that in any other way for the coding interviews. Okay, I'm going to jump over to Visual Studio now, and I'm going to bring up some code that I had from before, and we're going to add a new project. We're going to get benchmark.net going. And full disclaimer, I have no idea what I'm doing. So you're going to see me basically potentially struggle through this. The last live stream on this was kind of fun. I made a huge mistake, and it was great because people in the chat were able to help. But I was looking for headers, and I was looking for headers on the wrong type. I needed content headers, not the other object that has headers. And I was like, no file that I'm downloading has these headers. So it was very embarrassing, but it was a reminder for folks like, this is basically like pair programming. It's a little bit more one-sided because I have a microphone and a camera on me. But it was like pair programming. So people were giving me ideas. And like I said, it's a reminder that you can do some awesome stuff together. But let me go ahead and share my screen. My camera's probably going to disappear because I still haven't figured this out yet. You can probably see my screen. I'm going to put the chat back up, make it a little bigger so people can see what's going on because I don't really use that part of my screen. And we'll put my face back in here. There I am. Cool. Let me also double check. I don't know if I can see LinkedIn chat here, by the way. Makes me a little nervous. The event didn't seem to get created on LinkedIn, so I can't even see if I'm actually streaming on LinkedIn right now. If you are watching this on LinkedIn, please let me know because I'm very curious because like I said, I don't think I can see it. Okay, so we got some code up here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and we're going to make a new project that's going to be for running benchmark. So pretty simple stuff, new project. We need a console app for this sort of thing. And we called it streaming data. And this will be the benchmarks. Okay, right, nothing too exciting. Now we need benchmark.net, and I have to remember because I messed this up last time, I'm going to switch my startup project right at the beginning so I don't press F5 later to go run it and get confused why it's not working. So we got that. We'll go to the NuGet packages here. And we need benchmark.net. Get that added in. So for folks that have not done benchmarking in C#, this is the go-to tool. It's absolutely amazing. It takes care of so many things that you probably wouldn't think about, like doing warm-up, how many iterations you need, like all this kind of stuff that if you were just like, I want to put a timer at the beginning of my code and calculate, call the stop method and then print out the time after, like this is truly incredible, very standardized setup and stuff. So it's really awesome. Okay, so we have our benchmark code. I think to start, I guess I should put a using in front of that. We'll use benchmark.net. Benchmark runner. I don't have a benchmark class yet. So can we do an assembly? Yeah, so we will do... Nope. Come on. There we go. I'm going to ask for the executing assembly. That's the assembly that we're currently in. I do this like right now to start. We're probably only going to have one benchmark in here. Not a big deal. So the other overload that I could use is when we make our benchmark class, I could pass in the type parameters, which are your less than and greater than signs, right? I could pass in the type that is my benchmark class, but this is basically going to go look for any benchmarks in our current assembly. And our current assembly is called streamingdata.benchmarks. It's basically a one-to-one mapping with the project file. So we don't have any benchmarks though. We got to fix that. I always seal my classes. You cannot do that in benchmark.net. I don't know how all of their stuff works behind the scenes, but basically, if you seal it, they're unable to do the magic that they need to do to run your benchmark. So don't do that. I don't know what to call the benchmarks yet. I'm putting this attribute on the top called a short run job. And short run job is going to allow us to do fewer iterations, because the thing I want to remind you is that I'm about to run benchmarks that download files from the internet. Friendly reminder, this is not a good idea. It's not at all, but I'm trying to see if there's a cool way that I can go measure the memory usage, not the runtime performance. So we will see. And I'm going to put this other attribute on here called memory diagnoser. Thank you, Copilot. I don't know if it's listening to me or just reading my mind, but we want memory diagnoser on here. That's the thing that I'm after, because it's going to show us the memory usage. The other thing, like I have Enterprise Edition of Visual Studio. I could probably go run the profiler and check it out and take snapshots and compare them. But I figured benchmarking using benchmark.net will give us something kind of consistent we can print out. I don't know. Like I said, I'm kind of just winging this to see. But this is the video, or the core of the video, that I want to be able to put out probably on Thursday this week. So you're getting a behind the scenes of what I'm doing to put this together. So we have this benchmarks class. Before we set anything up, what I need to do, and there's other ways that I could do this. I could go copy the code that we had in the other video. I'm just going to reference it. So the top left project, oops, close that. We don't need to see that. I'm going to right click on here, add project reference, and then I'm going to reference, I think it was download API was the second one I made. Yes, it was. Okay. So now I have access to this, and I don't think I made stuff public. So I'm going to make things public. We have that. I need to make these things public. So the reason I'm doing this is that if I could spell, that would be even better. I'm going to make things visible to the other assembly, because when they don't have an access modifier on them, which I recommend you always put an access modifier. I was just taking some shortcuts. When you don't have an access modifier, by default, it's private. And I don't know, with no top level statements, if you know in the chat, feel free to add your comments, but we're not using top level statements in this one. So there was no like overall program.cs with a class defined. It's all using like the shorthand syntax. So I don't know. I assume private or internal, but the point is that you can't see it outside of the assembly. So that's why I'm making it public. What else here? So stream with length is less accessible. Okay, so where is that defined? I missed one. Oops. Cool. So is that all of them? It is. So we should be able to, and I see the questions in the chat. Just give me 1 sec here. We should be able to do this. Yay. And then we can do a global setup. I don't know if we're going to need to with this. I'm just trying to think about this. Let me do it the way that I think we should. And we'll come back to it in a second. And actually, this was already set up in such a good way to be able to do this. But where did I do it? In this one? Oh, that's right. I'm already in here. What's going on? Sorry. I'm in the wrong file. This one had the service collection stuff, so I want to use that. And I might have to go add some other NuGet packages to be able to get this guy here. This is so that we can get an HTTP client factory, which if you're building server applications, probably in general, you want to be using this, not just newing up HTTP clients. If you're doing something super simple, not a big deal. But if you're constantly opening and like disposing of new HTTP clients, you can run into some issues with your socket usage. So I'm going to go ahead and take this because it's super handy. And actually, let me just copy that whole thing. And we should be able to do... Oh, thank you. Copilot is honestly awesome. And you can see what it's doing already. Right? This is why Copilot's so sweet. This isn't an ad for Copilot, by the way, because no one's paying me to do this. YouTube gives me about $1 per day to make videos, so I'm not quitting my job. But if, if I press tab, like it's done, right? How cool is that? That does not need to be read only. Service collection, we get that. Awesome. It's beautiful. Now we do need to, well, we don't have to, but we should do that because this is not a constructor. Just adds up. We could make a constructor. We could do that. But if I'm going to parameterize this at all, and I don't think I'm going to, but generally when I'm writing benchmarks, I will put this stuff into a setup function instead of a constructor, because if I need to parameterize, then I can. So when I say parameterize, if we wanted to pick different URLs to go download, actually we might need to do that. We might need to go pick different size files. So you do this global setup because it will go handle the parameterization for you, which we may get to. Okay, questions in the chat. Hi, Nick. Thanks for this awesome live session. I'm from Bangladesh. That's not a question, but awesome. Great that you could make it. I think it's so cool that, you know, completely opposite side of the world that we can have this connection. So that's one of the really fun things about doing content. So thank you for being here. Okay, thanks, Nick, for the answer. Another question for me. I'm trying to become a senior developer, but I'm not really sure. Do I need to learn all the best practices, design patterns, and what do you expect from a senior developer compared to a mid-level developer? So definitely, I would not say to go out of your way trying to like just learn design patterns and stuff. That's not the focus that I would say. Now, gotta preface all this kind of advice with like, it's hard. Like I'm not your manager, unfortunately, right? So this is just going to be my perspective, and I need to offer this to you in a way that you can kind of take it, interpret it how you'd like, see how it's applicable to you, and that goes for anyone else that's listening, right? It's challenging for me to give general advice, especially as a manager, and saying, "Oh, just do this because that's what your manager wants." I don't know your manager. I have my beliefs and philosophies about managing and engineering teams. So I'll share with you that and try to offer general guidance here, but I have to kind of offer that disclaimer. So when I'm thinking about people going from, even just in general, the spectrum of going from very junior developers all the way through like, you know, senior principal and sort of beyond kind of thing, it's all about circle of influence and area of impact. And I guess that goes with the amount of impact. So I don't think that it requires that you have to go out of your way to go like, okay, there's a list of like 20 design patterns, go memorize all of them. Because even like take design patterns, right? Like design patterns are a good spot to start. But a lot of the time in real life, like it's not going to be a cookie cutter, drop the design pattern in, it just happens to work the way you need it to, because code just doesn't work like that almost all of the time. If you're building stuff that's brand new, maybe, but odds are like even then it's not going to be totally line up like that. So now, does it help? Like I put out content about design patterns and things like that. So do I think that it helps? Sure, I think that's nice. I think you can go learn about those things if you're not familiar because they give you some different perspective. So when I'm looking for people going from mid-level to senior, there's a handful of things that are going on at this point, and it's still continues on those two spectrums that I was talking about. So I do expect that senior engineers, so if you're going from mid-level to senior, I want to see that you are mentoring other people. That can look very different. So I don't mean that you've set up a formal mentoring relationship and you're getting students and stuff like that. Like, no. I want to see that you're helping level up the people on the team around you, potentially on other teams, like, but you're trying to be what I would call a multiplier, right? You have people around you that need help to be more effective engineers, and this is your opportunity where you can be doing that for them. So sometimes that means you're going to have a little bit, you're going to feel a little bit slowed down, right? You're going to have your own work you want to do, but being able to balance your work, your deliverables, and helping level up those around you, I think is a very good indicator for working towards senior. Doesn't mean you're managing people, right? But you're helping basically coach others to become better engineers as well. So I like to start seeing that in seniors and like beyond senior. By the way, the labeling, this looks different everywhere, so it's really tricky to, I can tell you the Microsoft levels, but Meta, I have no idea. So for us, you would be going from, let's say you're at a software engineer 2 to a senior, and then principal is beyond that. So even at principal level, I do expect that the principal engineers are helping coach the more junior people on the team. And that looks different depending on your level, right? So coaching a junior person might be, or shouldn't even be, might be, is probably is probably very different than a principal person coaching a senior, right? Because they know the senior knows these other things, but they're also trying to help the senior get to the next level too. So that's a big part. But on the technical side, because I think most people want to hear the technical pieces, I'm trying to give you the parts that I don't think people are paying as much attention to. On the technical side, though, this starts to speak to like it's not just the size of the projects, but generally there's a correlation. So you're working on larger projects and you might go, well, I don't have those. We don't have those on the team. I keep getting these smaller things and I'm like doing pretty good, like chipping away at the work that's given to me. I would say you need to be proactive, speak up about this kind of stuff, have a conversation with your manager. If you're like, hey, I'm trying to do more impactful work, but I don't see these opportunities coming up. Have that conversation with them, right? You want to be proactive and try to see if you can get approval or get, scheduled to work on a project that is bigger. And it's a good conversation out with your manager because they can give you some insight. You can get a feel for like how confident they are in that. They might say, hey, I'd like you to do some of these other things first. And then I think you'll be ready to take on something bigger like that. But the point is that you're using that as a reference point to see like, am I ready to take on something bigger? And then you basically are in this position, hopefully, where your manager is kind of stretching you a little bit out of your comfort zone. So you might work on a bigger project that you get to do a lot of the design on. It might be across teams. Your manager might say, hey, like there's a couple other people on the team that are going to be working with you on this, but you are the driver for it. Something else that you'll want to demonstrate, this is not a technical thing, but it's very important, is like, call it, I don't like the word ownership, because sometimes I think people hear ownership and they think that means like it's just me. That's not what I mean when I say ownership. Accountability, responsibility, and ownership. So if things are going a little bit off, like you want to have accountability for that. It's not, oh, like the project's going a little bit off course, I guess I better keep quiet and like just hope it's okay. It's like, no, you're being proactive. Like, okay, well, what's up with the project? Like what parts are going off course? Start diving into it, looking at it, try to raise awareness to say, hey, like, looks like we're about a week behind now. Like, what should we do to adjust this? So I'm kind of just blasting a lot of stuff in your direction. Let me know if any of that resonates. But the whole pattern is that I would expect to see that kind of stuff and just scale it up more and more as the levels are going higher. It's those types of things that I like to see. But that's for me. Yeah, I'm going to keep going on, but feel free to keep updating me in the chat if you have more questions or if you want me to clarify that some more. Okay, so the code we have on the screen, back to the code, is the dependency injection container. That's what the service collection's for. The HTTP client part is going to give us the HTTP client factory. We need that for our stream downloader. If you're not familiar with dependency injection, just to quickly show you, if I wanted to go make this stream downloader, you can see that I would have to pass in one of these iHTTP client factories. I go back to here, you'll notice that when I go to get a stream downloader, I never say this. Right? I don't type this anywhere, because if I did need to do that, I would need to do this. And if I needed to do that, oops, I can't spell. Come on, Copilot, save me. Right? You'd have to do that, but instead of getting the service, there is no HTTP client factory. We can't even new one up. But that's the idea. Instead of doing this kind of thing, and sometimes with dependency injection, it's saving you from like many levels of this where you're doing more and more composition of objects. We just get rid of it because this will automatically because they're registered above on line 21 and 22, this will automatically say, I need to go make one of these. I need to get that, I should say. And it's registered as a singleton. So the first time someone asks that, the first time that someone asks for this, there we go. It's the second time's the charm. Then we can have the dependency container go say, oh, well, I don't have one yet. Let me go make that. What do I need to make this? And then it goes, oh, I need an iHTTP client factory. And it's going through its registrations and realizes, like someone called this. I know how to give you one of those. So it kind of works backwards to figure out what you need to go make those things. And then it starts to feel kind of like magic when you ask for things. So dependency injection, super awesome. If you're not familiar with it, I do have plenty of videos on using something called AutoFac, which is my favorite dependency injection framework, but it's very similar to what you're seeing that I have highlighted. Just a heads up. Okay, now we got one of these. We're at the point where we can almost benchmark something because we don't need too much. So what do we want to benchmark? I think I need to have this benchmark attribute. It's been a while. We'll find out. I'm going to do public async. Typing is so difficult. Copilot, do your thing. Look at that. How cool is that? I don't even, I'm done. The stream's over. Right? Not quite though. So this is just getting us the stream, and what we should be able to do from here, like technically, this is going to be kind of weird because the way this API looks, it's trying to get a stream and technically it could fail, but based on the implementation, we know it's not going to. So I could try to cut out some of this. So instead, I'm just going to do this. You probably wouldn't want this in your real code. You would want to check if this comes back as one thing or the other, right? I'm going to end up pulling this guy out, this URL. We're going to parameterize it. And just to kind of walk through, though, we have a URL for something we want to download. We're going to, this is the part that we built before. So we're going to ask the stream downloader to get us a stream that has the URL in it. This is going to then give us a stream result, and we should be able to check if there is a length. Spoiler alert, based on the last video, there's going to be a length on this one, which is good news. And then from there, what we can do is try to stream it. Now, there's a couple of things, and I was trying to think about this ahead of time, but when we're trying to benchmark this for usage, what do we want to do? Because we need to actually stream it. Because if this works how I'm hoping it works, is that when you do any of this right here, it's not going to read in the whole stream into memory. So how do we start reading this in? And the answer, I don't think, is going to be read it into memory. We don't want to put it into a memory stream. Hello on Twitch, good to see you. And instead, we have a couple things. We could try to copy it to a null stream. So basically, it's like a no-op, and we should just be able to write there, and it does nothing. But at least we're trying to pull in from the network. So that could be very interesting. But the other variation I was thinking about is like a file stream. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it should be okay. It should be okay. But I think the file stream could be very representative of what you might expect to see for memory usage. Because it's not going to affect... Well, there's a couple things here. We're going to have... it's a bit of a spoiler. We have to go build more code to show the example here that is not using our stream downloader. You want to compare it to the baseline. So that is going to pull it into memory. Now that I'm thinking about this, I definitely don't want to download this one that's 10 gigs. Because when I go to show it the other way, I think it's going to try to make a 10 gig memory stream. We're not doing that. I haven't tried it though. Maybe it won't. The point is, I want to be able to show you, if you were to really use something like this, what the memory usage might look like. And I feel like writing it to a file will give you some of that input. That comparison isn't going to matter. It's going to be like a common piece that we could factor out when we're looking at the benchmarks, but we'll see. What am I working on? So this is building on previous live streams that I've done in some YouTube videos. We're going to do some file downloading in C#, but we've built some pieces for this already. What we're going to do is benchmark the comparison between the traditional way, which by default is going to pull things into a memory stream. We don't want to do that with bigger files. And the alternative, which is the thing we built together, which should allow us to just kind of stream it on the fly and do something with it without the whole file in memory. Fingers crossed. So I am going to have to go find another file. Not a big deal. And I do think for this one, I'm going to do stream with, how do I want to do this? It's a network stream under the hood. I'm going to call it on the fly. I need a better name for it, but basically we're not putting it all into memory. We're going to be streaming it on the fly. And so on the fly and to null stream. That's going to be the first one we do. So we should be able to do, we have a stream with length that's passed out here. Stream null. There we go. Oh, did I not copy that? This is funny. I want to show you guys this because it's interesting. We put this not null when true thing on here. But if we go back here, it's like, hey, like this could be null. And in my head, I'm like, that can't possibly be null. We know that we're getting a stream with length, but we don't know that because we didn't put an if statement. I deleted it, right? But maybe just for safety, whatever. The if statement itself should not add much overhead. But why is this still... Oh. Because I missed an exclamation mark. So yeah, if we try to get a stream with a length back from this and we don't have one, then we should not be able to continue. So kind of gross that we're putting a check in the benchmark, but I'm just trying to satisfy some of the warnings here. Not a big deal. Okay, so by the way, if you're watching this and you're like, Nick, that is a big deal. That technically changes performance characteristics. You're absolutely right that it does, but I'm just trying to do memory profiling here. So that's the important part. Okay, so we got that. Do I want to do... Let's do the null stream to start with, but I think to do the comparison properly, we are going to need to do the variation of this, which is not using this stream with length. So what does that look like? Technically, maybe I want to think about how I do this. So there'll be a memory stream to null stream. You can see already that I don't want to copy that URL out. Sorry, I don't want to copy the URL. I want to extract it out. This is the thing I'm probably going to parameterize. Copilot's so good. And actually, that's so cool. It changed the URL, right? This was the other one that's on my clipboard. But you can see that it took this one. This is actually the file I want to go download because it's 20 megabytes. It knew. It's so smart. Okay, that's the URL. And I have it pulled out now. But we don't want to use, in this case, we don't want to use the stream downloader. We don't want to do that because it's going to have the network stream. So we have to do it the manual way. So we can basically go look at what that's doing. And I was thinking about this. I'm probably going to have to pull out the HTTP client factory. Okay, sure. Let's do this. Okay, so in here, under the hood, this one, sorry, I'm jumping around here. Under the hood, this one is going to go make a new HTTP client. So we need to make it apples to apples for comparison. So I do want to do this here, which means I do need to go also do a private HTTP client factory. I don't want all of that Copilot. Close. There we go. Most of my coding now is just pressing tab, which is really cool. And I don't have a cancellation token, so we'll put default into here. And response header is red. So actually the default is to not have that. It's content red. So this should, in theory, force a memory stream for us. It's going to try to read everything in. Tab code is the future for many. Absolutely. I would love, maybe I don't want this. I don't know. So I haven't really thought this through yet, but hear me out. The fact that I'm saying all this stuff into a microphone and talking to you folks, and then I would love if it was like, oh, that's what Nick wants, and like it knows what I'm saying, as then I can keep pressing tab. Um, I don't love, yeah. I don't know. I think it would be helpful. I don't love tab. Uh, hello, also on Twitch. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining. So we don't have a stream with length, though. It's just a stream. And in theory, we have a benchmark. We have 2 benchmarks. I'm nervous. I'm nervous because this is a really not good idea to go benchmark downloading files from the internet. But I think we should try it. I'm also streaming, so weird bandwidth considerations, I guess, but I don't know. Should be okay. Let's try it, right? What's going on with this? Oh. I can put one of these guys on there. By the way, if you saw what I just did, I'm just getting rid of the warnings. I'm just being a little bit pedantic. The question mark suggests that this can be nullable because of how I'm not using a constructor with read only. And then if I go back down here, technically, this is saying like, hey, if you didn't go run that method, because it doesn't know that benchmark.net is going to go run that code first, we have to do this to make that warning go away. I'm curious about the download part on benchmark. Me too. I have to say it again because there's going to be people leaving and joining the stream. Downloading and benchmarks is a terrible idea because nothing is going to be consistent. I'm just saying it again in case you're joining here. Not okay. Don't do this. I am trying to look at the memory characteristics. Yes, I could use the profiler. Yes, I could cut out the middleman and simulate all of this, but I just want to show like with all the real pieces, like what do we got going on? Kind of like doing a functional test, and I'm truly going out and hitting the internet. This is not a great idea. But yeah, the stream shouldn't be an issue because I'm uploading. You're right. So hopefully that's no one, not like the stream drops or something ridiculous, but I think we're good to go here. This one, I believe it's the 30-second one from the sample lib one is 20.1 megabytes or something. But I think we're good to go. So what we're going to do is switch this over to release. That's step 1. And then we run this not in debug mode because it's going to complain if we do. The way to go run this then seems completely counterintuitive. We want to run this without the debugger because that's different than running in debug mode. Might sound confusing. We are basically compiling it in release. That's what I did up at the top. Switch from debug to release. But we want to run it without the debugger because you can take a release build and attach a debugger to it. It's just weird because if it's optimized, things might not line up in the code. So from there, the reason I said this seems ridiculous is because we're going to run it without the debugger. What menu item do you think we would go to for that? You wouldn't think the debug menu, but that's exactly where we go. And then we say start without debugging. This menu should probably just be called start ... or something, run ... It's not, it's called debug. So there we go. And now we cross our fingers. I actually don't know how many times the short run job executes too, but my internet down is pretty good. Actually, it's Comcast, so who am I kidding? It's supposed to be pretty good. It's supposed to be a gigabit down, but I bet you if I went and ran a speed test, it would be like embarrassingly slow. So we'll see. I'm very curious. I have a terrible feeling already. Maybe we don't want the 20 megabyte file. Oh, this is going to be bad. Comcast, the one that now owns VMware. Is that true? I did not know that. Did not know that. Yeah, I got a bad feeling about this. Yeah, if the warm up is something that we're talking through, probably not going to be good. But it's a short run job. We should be okay. Hey, look at that. Oh, is it just about to start the benchmark or what? Where'd it go? Okay, well we'll wait here. I'm not losing hope yet. This is the part when I'm making YouTube videos, I usually would go cook food or something and then come back and then I edit it out or my editor will edit it out. But look at this. Oh, this worked. This worked and it's super cool because it's kind of telling us what's going on. Okay, are you guys ready for this, guys and gals? Okay, so again, the time, usually we would be looking at time. Please do not look at the time because there's just too many variables. It's super silly. Don't look at it. What we're looking at is here. Oh, I can't highlight a single column. That was ridiculous. We're looking at the allocated column. So when we go to do it on the fly, which is using the class that we made, the allocation when we're going to stream a 20 meg file was 214 kilobytes. Now, the number is obviously lower than the other one we're going to look at, so we'll talk about that. The overall memory usage, I can't comment on because I don't know all the other things going on behind the scenes. The code that we wrote specifically, like, I don't know, maybe we could have used a struct as the return type. Like, I don't know. There's probably a couple other things we could have done to try to squeeze a little bit more memory out, but the reality is all the heavy lifting is completely done behind the scenes in the stream class for us. And the downloading. Pardon me, I had a sip of pop and now I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to burp. Not on stream. You can't edit it out. But the other one, right, the memory stream, this one is truly, that's the 21 megs I was talking about, right? 21 and then another 3 digits here. So we went from 21 megabytes in memory and the other one was, less than a quarter of a megabyte in memory. So this is very cool. It also happened to be faster, but like I said, we don't want to trust that, not reliable. Don't look at it, don't get too attached to it. I would totally anticipate that the amount of time is very comparable. But if you wanted to prove that to yourself, you could go set up a simulation that you can control where you're trying to copy from a source, right? You have a memory stream as a source, and then you try to do, stream in chunks versus stream the entire thing and copy it. Interestingly, if you had, I don't know how optimized memory streams and stuff are, but technically if it could just do a whole single array copy, it's probably lightning fast, but who knows? We're not doing that today. This is what we were looking at. So this is one thing. The time could depend on server latency as well. Absolutely, yeah. There's so many variables. I don't want you to go look at the time here. Allocated was the goal of this. I'm curious, though, if we wanted to go write this out to a file, what's that going to look like? Another variable that we could play with, and I'm not too inclined to go do it because just the time it takes, we could try doing smaller files, right? So the idea might be that if we went below, we saw that the total allocation, sorry, I closed it, but the total allocation was 215 or something kilobytes for the on the fly one. Well, what would happen if we picked something that was smaller than 215 kilobytes, right? So let's imagine a different scenario, and I'm not going to go do this, but say we wanted to download 100 files that were 100 kilobytes, right? So many files that are under that threshold. What then? Is the memory stream one more effective? Because you're like, hey, look, I'm willing to go pull, and let's say it's sequentially too, right? So I'm able to have a memory stream pull in 100 kilobytes. I'm cool with that. And you want to do that 100 times? Sure, like we can recycle the memory, hopefully. Even if we can't, maybe it's just fast enough and overall it's not a ton of memory usage. I don't know. You might have some really interesting results, but these are the types of things. And I like talking about this stuff because um, remember, if you were on the stream earlier, I was saying I don't think leak code is a lot of the time very representative of like real software engineering. This is one of those reasons why, because I gave you a scenario where maybe we want to download many smaller files versus one big file, and you might go change your entire design approach for that. And sometimes when you're doing leak code stuff, it's very much like a here's a hyper focus problem and like it's got an optimization trick. And I would much rather people think like holistically about the different types of scenarios you have to work through. So I think that there's a lot more, this is my opinion, I think there's a lot more useful patterns that you can extract from that and reapply in a general engineering sense. You can do different analysis that way. I use LeetCode for the problem solving path more. Yeah, and honestly, like if you, this is why like I give you my opinion, but I'm not telling you it's a rule. Right? My opinion is that I don't think it translates well. However, if you find that you go do LeetCode problems and you feel like when you go to go build things practically, you're like, hey, like thankfully going through those LeetCode problems helps me think through this, then by all means, like you have to do what works for you. I hope that when I'm talking to my audience in general, when I'm giving advice, I don't want to every time I open my mouth say this is just my opinion, but I hope you guys understand that. Like I don't want to tell you there's one right way to do stuff because I would be lying to you. Aside from saying C# is the best language, right? We all know that. Just kidding. But there isn't just one right way to do stuff. So I never want that to be the message that you take away. And if you ever feel like I'm producing content and you're like, hey, Nick, it sounds like you're saying this is the only way to do it, feel free to call me out on it because I would rather correct that content for you and explain myself than have you left like walk away from reading that or watching it going like, okay, well, I guess that's the way it has to be done. And like that feels kind of weird. There is never one right answer for stuff. You change the constraints around a little bit or you're aware of more constraints and suddenly your answer can change. So I actually gave a shout out to Derek Co-Martin last night on my live stream, and I will do it again. If you want to see someone who is extremely good at explaining things in different contexts and not saying like this is always the best thing, because unfortunately a lot of people will do that. Derek Co-Martin of codeopinion.com is also a YouTuber. He's got tons of subscribers on YouTube. Absolutely brilliant, but he does such a good job explaining something, explaining the context that it's valuable in, and not like hyper fixating to it, because if you gave him different context, he would say, yeah, that won't work as well as maybe this other thing. Here's why. So, okay, didn't code as much as you, to be honest, but another leak code I did help me really on my projects. I see it as a brain trainer, at least for now. Yeah, like, different tools, right? And again, I'm not crapping on leak code. For my principal engineering manager position at Microsoft, by the way, I don't code at work. I still had to do a coding interview. And I did go practice lead code at the time I had been programming for 17 years. I still practice lead code because I said, I don't know how to do lead code effectively. That's not what I do at work. Okay, let's go move on and try. I'm going to copy these because like I said, I want to use these for YouTube. This is the code that's going to be going on YouTube. So if you do watch my channel and you see this video, you're going to say, hey, I watched Nick put this together. Like you'll understand my thought processes of going through stuff. So it's not going to be to null stream. It's going to be to file stream. I'll do that again. We should be able to, how do I want to do this? So I don't just want to do that though. Let's start with that. But I want to do a new file stream because we have some nice options in here where I can say, we scroll through these. I was just double checking it's not getting cut off on the stream. File mode, file access, and file share. So file mode, I want to do open or create. file access. We're just writing file share. We don't need any. And I will space this out a little bit better so folks can read. By the way, I don't talk about this a lot, but you'll see probably in a lot of code I write, it's very vertical. The more, you may not believe me, but the more horizontal your code is, especially if you're using a scroll bar to go read it, you can dramatically improve your reading experience when you make things more vertical. I'm not telling you it's the one right way, but I would say give it a shot for a little bit if you don't believe me. Because the more time that you spend doing this when you're reading code, the more time you're spending in general. You just want to read and not have to move your eyes so much. It honestly does help a lot. That's been my experience. A lot of people will say this, but it takes a bit of a leap of faith because you might be like, that makes me so uncomfortable. Just jam it all on one line, but try it. I promise. Actually, I shouldn't promise because I'm not saying it's the best, but I strongly recommend it, if I can say that. I mostly use LeetCode to be better at optimizing and stuff, not forgetting stuff that I don't do as much. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. Yep. So that's totally cool, right? Like, again, it's another tool that you have, but I would say, again, personal opinion, your best tool at getting better is to build things. That's what you're going to be doing at work. Build stuff, right? Doesn't have to be something you're going to go sell off, but you want to be building things. It's such good practice. Okay, so we have this file stream here. We're going to copy that to here. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to give it a different name. Just that part. We'll call it sample 2, and it's just stream. So this should work. The numbers that we had before were like 200 and I think it was 215. I don't know if you guys took a mental screenshot. I don't want to go run all these other ones again. To make my YouTube video, just for the record, I will go run them all so I can have either screenshots or something to refer to with accurate numbers. But I think it was like 215 kilobytes and basically 21 megs. Now we're going to go make these files and hopefully it should be okay. But we'll find out, right? Remember, we have to go right-click debug, start without debugging. It's still in release mode. And let's see what happens. Now, I'm going to respond to some chat stuff as this is going. So, agree on build stuff. This is how I learn by doing. I have 2 jobs. One is more back-end. The other one's more front-end. And in my private time, I'm building a dashboard for VPS and game servers. Awesome to start hosting businesses in the future. So I'm basically full stack. That's super cool. It's great that you're doing that. Some people will say they don't have time for doing that kind of stuff, or they don't want to make, software development their entire life and personality. And I totally get that, right? I get that. It's difficult if you are not giving yourself extra time and you are trying to also get ahead, because then I would say, like, ultimately something has to take priority. And again, I'm not saying you have to go do that with your personal life, but you're making a conscious decision to prioritize other things over some type of advancement in your skill set. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, for the record. I'm just saying that we only have so much time. And if you want to get better at things, I would say you either need more time for it, or you need to make other things you're doing more effective so that you can get more time back. So just a different way to think about it. I don't have friends. Oh, come on, don't say that. And I work fully remotely, so I have enough time. Okay, don't say that, though. You got friends. We're here. If there's no other friends, that's cool. Don't worry. But I spent, once I graduated university and I was working at a startup, I spent 8 years just working almost nonstop. Just how I lived, right? I had friends, but I've talked about this before. Like I had a lot of burnout problems, but it looked different. Like I didn't realize I was burning out because I love work. But I was like, I had social anxiety, like pretty bad. Hey, this got better, by the way. Results are in. But the writing to a file actually was better than going to the null stream. That seems suspicious. The times, look at the times. Interesting. Right? What's going on with that? You're supposed to say, Nick, we can't trust the times. Nick, we can't trust the times you're downloading stuff from the internet. Don't do that. Yeah, so we can't trust the times. I find it fascinating that they're very close, right? It seems a little odd, doesn't it? They're very close. Suspiciously close for downloading stuff from the internet. But yeah, the allocation is interesting. I do think that this was 215 before, so just it frees mem faster when right. I don't know. I don't know. It was going to a null stream though, so it shouldn't have even been doing a copy. Like there should have been no extra allocations at all. That's the. I just would have thought that this number would have been higher. So the idea is if we forget the comparison between the two streams, right? We have a stream, and then in one scenario we're taking stuff from that stream and copying it to nothing, which actually results like the null stream copying. Maybe not. Null stream copying. It's still the copy let's let's check this out because I'm interested now. So okay, let's take a mental snapshot of this because I want to stop this. Actually, it is stopped. Cool. Copy to, where are you? So we're going to go through this code a little bit. Aha, okay. So we're reading from the source and writing to. So the write async method is on the destination. On a null stream, I would expect that write async is just literally a complete no-op. So that's interesting. This is using memory pointing to a buffer, so this should not have allocations. It's all very interesting. So I'm not sure if you're watching this, especially if this is already recorded and you're watching it and you're like, Nick, you're stupid. Here's why it's happening. I'm very interested to understand more about why a stream of any kind writing to a null stream took more memory than theoretically that exact same stream writing to a file. I would just have expected that the implementation, this is the destination part, that of a file stream would have some extra type of allocation, certainly not just less than a stream that literally does nothing. So pretty cool. I don't know the answer, but it's not really that important. It's just a curiosity. And that's why I like going through some of this stuff for me. Like the whole goal of why I put this original series together, full transparency, I needed to download files. I needed to download files, but I needed to know the length. The operation I'm trying to do requires the length. Otherwise, I just can't do the operation. And it's fine if I can't do it. No worries, but I can only continue if I have the length. And unfortunately, when you do the one variation where it's not using the memory stream, we were never getting the length. So I was like, I got to figure this out. This is a solved problem, right? So here's the answer. So digging into the details beyond that, not super important. I just needed a working solution, but it's cool to go through this because I get to learn totally random stuff. And now I have more questions. So just catching up on chat here. Since I have a house and a cat, not gonna lie, all my bad feelings and burnouts just disappeared. That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. Happy life like never before. Working is fun, but I don't work too much. Good. This is good. I recently got iPads, so I don't have to be on my PC to do work all the time. Good, that like separation, right, is super important. Now I go outside, under a tree, and do the notes and sketches there on the P. Man, that's so cool to hear. I'm really glad to hear that. Just in general, like there's a lot of good things there, right? Not working too much. You mentioned having a cat, right? Like when I tell my burnout story, I always bring up the fact that, and it always makes me emotional. So I'm not gonna try to. I'm gonna try not to get choked up. But I ended up getting a dog. It was about 4 or 5 years into working, and the only solution I had for myself was getting my dog. I said I need something that will physically take me out of work because there was no excuse for, like, I would basically do anything and be like, I could be working and literally like helping a business grow and having an impact on the world, because we were making forensic software to a lot of the time it was used to help catch pedophiles, and like it felt good to be helping with that. And I needed something that would take me out of work, and I said I'm getting a dog, and her name's Lila, and I will always say that Lila saved my life, because without that I wouldn't have had that separation, something to pull me out of work. I finally, at that point, because I wasn't in a relationship or anything, right? And I was getting social anxiety, so I wasn't even around my friends a lot. But I finally had something at that point where I said, this is a life. It's more important that I go home and do this than trying to spend, jump into the next problem and like just stay at work. It was like, you have to go home. You have to be with your dog. So really cool to hear that you have some of that separation going on. It's awesome. Um, yeah, and then so on the code, right? So maybe when we run several tests, it's more accurate. That's the idea with benchmark.net, 100%. But the whole idea of downloading files, I would fully expect that there's such little consistency there, because going out to the internet, hitting some, I don't even know where this server is in the world, right? If it was like in Washington here, like if it was, I don't know, in Seattle, like maybe it's actually relatively consistent, but still it's going out to the internet. So I do think that when we're running several tests, and we're not doing the internet, like we have full control over stuff, that I would expect it to be a lot more consistent. But yeah, cool. That's pretty awesome. Um, that's mostly what I wanted to look at for the performance part. That's going to be my video. Spoiler alert. So now we can see. But I do want to see if we can maybe change the API, because I wanted to do this in the other live stream, but I didn't do it. I think I got distracted and I was probably chatty and just missed it. So, um, something I wanted to look at, and I don't know if I'll implement it, but I wanted to talk through it because I think it's an interesting idea. We have this get stream method on our stream downloader. And I guess I was hoping that the benchmarks would show some different results, or maybe if we were to go, I talked about this different scenario that I didn't benchmark, right? But let's say, going back to the other idea, if we need a ton of small files, is it just more effective to use the memory stream? I don't know. We didn't benchmark that. I don't know the answer to that. But if we assume that there was a situation where you're like, look, we should pull it into memory all at once because it's quicker. I don't know. Maybe there's some sort of like resource contention on the other side that you're talking to stream the data. Literally, I don't know. But if there was a reason you wanted to do that, I was thinking that on get stream async, we could give it another parameter that says like a threshold. And the idea would be that if we could get the size, so when we do try to get content with length, if we try to get the size and it was within the threshold, say you're like, I'm willing to anything that's a megabyte and under, like just pull it into memory. I'm cool with that. Just making this up, right? If you were cool with that, then we could have a parameter that you could pass in. We could do a check and we could say, hey, like, if that's the case, let me just give you a memory stream back. But now I'm kind of like, again, I haven't thought through this. This was a thought that I was interested in trying to walk through. But it's funny, like as I started saying it, I was like rubber ducking it with you guys. And I think that it's kind of a moot point. The moot point part is that to get the memory stream, we do that here. Like this part here, at the very beginning after making the HTTP client, this is the part that we would change to get a memory stream or not. But where do we know the length? After. So we've already made a decision about how to download it. One could argue like, okay, just, stream the whole thing into a memory stream right away and pass it back. But that's defeating the point. The goal was, I thought maybe we could add a parameter onto this and we could intelligently say, hey, look, we will call the other way, which is this, right? We could call this instead give you back the memory stream, not check for the headers and stuff. But we actually can't do that because we only know the length, if we have one, at this point. So that idea is not going to work, unfortunately, but I thought it might be kind of cool to give you the option to decide when to put it into memory and when not to. So I think that will be it for the coding part. I will wait and see if there's folks that have anything they want to ask in the chat. It can be about this stuff. It could be about literally anything. I'm happy to chat through it. That's the whole point of live streaming. I have a late meeting. I have a meeting in 30 minutes, so it'll be almost 11 o'clock by the time I get on that meeting, which I'm excited for, but I figured I would stream before that. So I got some time. If you guys got questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. Whether it's early in career stuff, if you're going through interviews, you're not even in the software industry yet, but you want to break into it. I don't promise you solutions for all this stuff, but I'm happy to try and talk to you about it and see if I can help. But effectively, the coding portion of this is done. So unless you have other code you want me to try and quickly jump into. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my full camera back on. It's probably going to do the thing where I disappear. Don't worry, I'm still here, I promise. And to prove it, oh no, maybe I am gone forever. No, psych, here I am. Don't worry. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I'm happy to chat through that. I'm doing OAuth for my hosting site right now and thinking about what services should be able to log in. I think about Google, GitHub, Apple, Microsoft. And I don't know how to pronounce that one. I know it's a Russian site. I don't know how to pronounce. I don't even want to try saying it on the stream because I'll be so embarrassed to get it wrong. Curious though, have you looked at Auth0 for this stuff? Because I'm going to be totally transparent with you. I've built many things that use OAuth, and every single time I go, why is this so complicated? Like, how did someone or a group of people go, we're going to make this standard for authentication, we're going to call it OAuth, and it's just so ridiculous every time I go to implement it. And we were building some things, and this isn't work related, by the way, so I'm not telling you we use Auth0 at Microsoft. We got our own stuff. But we were using Auth0 for this project. Someone recommended it, and it was so helpful that I couldn't understand how it worked, because they were saying, like, it'll do the authentication, and then we just have to add this little snippet into our ASP.NET Core application, the middleware, to basically say, can you validate this token? And I was like, well, how do we track the users? How do we know who they are? But you don't have to do any of it in your code. It's so cool. Once I have seen this, I probably will never go back to doing like manually writing OAuth stuff ever again. So I'm hoping that in the future I might do some videos on it, but it's still new to me, so I don't feel like I'm in a good spot to talk to people about it, because that feels disingenuous, I think is the word. Like, I don't want to teach you about it, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's just shiny, so I don't know if I would just go to auth0.com and check it out and see if they list the different providers that you're interested in. Seems pretty cool. I know it's got to have all the popular ones, at least for like a North American perspective. Sis and Man here trying to go on the software part, but the layoffs kind of scare me. Yeah, layoffs are pretty scary. Yeah, it's a reality right now, unfortunately, and it's been a reality for a few years. So I don't know. I don't like the idea of layoffs. I think I don't want to go too much into my like perspective on this because it's a bit of a rat hole, but I don't think it's a great strategy. It just doesn't feel right. And I've seen situations where, like, basically, okay, I'll explain. My biggest concern with it is that there's so much time and effort that goes into hiring good people. And time and effort for a business translates to money. So there is tons of money spent on hiring good people. You keep good people, you're helping them level up. And then when it comes to layoffs, it truly is not personal, right? There's a decision made at some high up organizational level that basically says this unit of the business is not going to be applicable, or it's going to be for, we're going to save money by axing it, right? And then that happens. But there's so many good people in there, right? Because that's why you had them. There's going to be like a spectrum of people as well, right? So there might be some people that are underperformers and that kind of stuff. You're going to have the whole range. But the point is that you're going to have so many good people in there. And it's really funny at big, in my opinion. I shouldn't use the word funny because I don't think it's a good thing, but ironic. I think it's ironic that even at big companies, you will still see like there's job openings. And in my head, I'm like, why would you like do a mass layoff and not try to hold as many good people as you can? I understand the layoff part in the first place is not good, but it just seems so silly to me that it wouldn't be like, if we deemed that we had to do this for the business, why would you not try to keep as many of the good people that you can? Because like I said, from a cost perspective, if that's all you're thinking about, you spend so much on good people, so keep them. But I recognize the layoff situation is very challenging. Awesome. So you did check out Auth0, might be a good option. Very cool. I hope it works out for you. And yeah, it's like it's unfortunate because like to say we're just numbers, like I like that kind of hurts for me to hear because I'm like I genuinely mean this. Like I love being able to be a manager, work with the people on my team. Everyone's an individual that has a unique journey and stuff going on. So like I don't think about people like numbers, right? And I'm sure my manager doesn't think about his reports as just numbers. And I don't think that his manager thinks about people as just numbers, right? I don't think that people as individuals have that, but unfortunately, when you go high enough up in an organization and you're talking about units of business, literally when you start referring to things as like organizational units of business, then it starts to be, yeah, like those are numbers. And it feels very inhuman, and I don't like that, but that's where that's at. Um, try to stick to mine and try some parts somewhere. Sweet. Yeah. Yeah, I think part-time, if you can do, like, it takes time, right? So I would say if this is an interest for you, like, spend the time building things, skilling up, and then testing the waters, right? Like, if you never start applying, what's the quote? Like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There you go, right? You got to be applying to things at some point, but yeah, like don't rush into it. Take your time and build up those skills as well. I guess if there's a tier list, what company think of their employees numbers? Cloudflare would be one. Yeah. I won't comment. I've seen some things online. Yeah. Keep current job for money and second for passion. Yeah. Like, so this is a good point, right? At the end of the day, like it sounds kind of grim, I guess, but like we only have so much time, depending on your religious beliefs and stuff, right? We only have so much time to be alive here, and we spend a lot of that time working. So I do think that ideally you find something that you're passionate about in your day job, and that's the thing that pays your bills, you're passionate about it, and like you can go to work feeling like I'm not just passing life by because you enjoy it. That's ideal, right? But there's going to be situations too where some people might say, look, like work, I have it very time boxed. That's just a thing I got to do. But you've found passion in other things and you can go spend your time doing that. Like I think at the end of the day, you need to find something you're passionate about and you can spend your time doing. And that's another reason why I tried to show this on a stream and I don't know how to turn my form around to get the right angle, but oh, and it's behind the chat now. Give me, I think I finally got it. Give me one sec. How do I do this? Let me turn off the chat. Okay. It's so hard to turn my forum, but ugh. So there you go. So that's an hourglass. And I got this tattoo. I have an opposite one on the other side. It's so hard with this thing being mirrored. I have two hourglasses on my forearms, and the one on my left side is to remind me that, like, you don't want to be going through life just trying to make money and chase a number, because anyone can keep spending more and more time working and spend more and more time trying to make money. And then at the end of the day, or I shouldn't say end of the day, end of the road, right? Like, what do you got? You got money and you didn't live your life. So it's not worth it after some point. And that's what my tattoo on my forearm is supposed to remind me of. So do make sure that you are finding time for your passions. I understand that, there's a minimum amount of income and stuff that you need to be able to support your family and that kind of thing. So I'm not saying, like, hey, you never have to think about money, but, like, beyond a certain point, like, you don't want to be sacrificing your whole life for it. Yeah, exactly. So money helps, but it's not everything. So that's my framing. Because I've gone through different periods where it's like, what do I do just for, like, any waking moment? Like, how do, like, can I be helping make more money? Right. That's kind of what it was like when I was at that startup. Not because they forced me, because that's just how I felt about doing it. It felt, I've described it this way before. It felt like it was my company, not that I got to make all the decisions or something, but I had a lot of trust with my leadership and then with me, and a lot of autonomy. So that was a situation that just made it feel like working was really fun. Okay, I think that's it, folks, but this was really cool. Thank you for joining. I hope the coding part was helpful. Um, Young blood, yep, exactly. But that's yeah, that's kind of some of the journey there. So thank you for joining. While I'm kind of signing off here, if you want to see particular things coded up, let me know. I try to let people know on live streams, right? Like, obviously I'll answer your questions while the stream is going, but I do try to make content outside of work on a regular basis. So you guys are my audience. If there's stuff you want to see, let me know, because I would rather make the stuff you want to see than focus all of my time on, like, oh, here's an interesting problem I ran into. Um, Project review, maybe. Yes. So this is something I've thought of. And I should mention this. I don't know. I am gonna be doing a live stream. Let me pull up my calendar super quick on my phone. Thank you for reminding me about this, even though you didn't know about this. Um, I have, I think it's next week, next Tuesday. So this is going to be at June 11th. This is in Pacific time, by the way. So June 11th from 7 in the morning, and it will probably take more than an hour. But I am going to be doing a live refactoring with someone. So they reached out to me and said, hey, could you give me some advice on refactoring this? And we had an exchange, and basically I got to the point where I said, look, I cannot do this for you. But I said, there is an exchange we could make here. And I said, you're aware that I create content. That's how you found me. And I said, would you be open to basically either doing a recorded session or doing a live stream where we can walk through this together? And he was like, yeah, that would be awesome. So collab streams, I am going to be trying to figure that out. I do have some interviews coming up. I'll tell you folks, because you're on the stream, and for people that will see the recorded version of this, spoiler alert, but I have reached out to, if you're in the .NET space, David Fowler and Scott Hanselman have both agreed to do interviews on the channel, and I'm super excited about that. There's only a handful of super big names in the .NET space, especially like directly from Microsoft. So there's two of them that have agreed to come on separately as guests. So I will be interviewing them. And I suggested, like, code show and tell would be really cool if you don't mind. So we're gonna try to set that up. But I want to try getting some other creators and doing some more collaborative stuff, especially with code. I think that would be cool. But yeah, project reviews, I'm trying to do that, but the challenge is, well, biggest challenge is time. So I need to make sure that I can try structuring that in. Even this stream, like totally ad hoc, I was like, I don't really know if I can get into too much between what I was doing before this and before the meeting I have coming up. So actually, let me double check. I hope it's not at 10:30 because I'm going to feel very embarrassed. No, 10:45. Oh, my heart stopped. So yeah, I think for me, it was like, I have some time. I have to prepare some YouTube content. This will be helpful. But I do want to find a way that's a little bit more organized to have people propose projects, send me over repos. I can check them out and say, okay, cool, we can talk through this. I think that would be kind of fun. Because the tutorials and stuff, I hope folks find those helpful based on the fact that I have a YouTube audience. I think people do. But I think seeing real code, like in real projects and navigating just like real things would be very helpful. So I will try to do more of that. So stay tuned. Channel's only, this is the 18th month of me doing it, consistently. The channel's been around for a very long time. I just wasn't consistent and didn't post stuff. So it's still very young, and I'm hoping to keep evolving the content. So I try to listen to your recommendations because you folks are the audience and I want to make the content for you. But I think that's all. So thank you so much for watching. I do live stream consistently 9:30 p.m. PDT on Mondays. This is generally a general software engineering topic. And the other ones so far, like this one, are kind of ad hoc. So you kind of got to see when they're coming up. The best way for now, this is the shameless plug, if you follow me on social media, ideally on YouTube, so you can see this stuff coming up. That's my primary platform for video. You'll know when I'm live streaming, right? I'm trying to get people on Twitch as well, so thank you for joining on Twitch. But yeah, follow me on those places. You'll know when I'm streaming, and I'll try to have a better, more consistent schedule for the coding stuff. And Rajesh, you're welcome. Thank you for your comment. Happy to help. Okay, folks, thank you. And hopefully I will see you Monday on the live stream. So take care. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have an awesome day if you're starting your day, and have a great sleep if you're heading to bed soon.